And so long as we have set out all the parameters of the meeting in the agreement, then I have no problem with it. But I don't want it to wander off in debate, which now my friend tells me I can't talk about afterwards because I came to this secret session about something that maybe didn't need to be secret.
Well, my friend, you.
I yield.
The contemplation of this unanimous consent is that there will be no business done in the sense of doing business is taking legislative action. That nobody contemplates that.
Well, I understand the distinction, but I think of my history under the Texas Open Meetings Act, and just the discussing of these matters is a part of public business taking place. Surely. I think the majority leader, I've yielded to him, and then I'll certainly yield.
I just want to complete my thought.
Yeah.
There are some in this body who have, because of their membership on particular committees, been able to see information in secret which other members of this body have not seen. As the distinguished gentleman from California observed, there are still limitations notwithstanding this secret session. We have a room that allows people to receive information in secret. They are not necessarily transacting business, although the Intelligence Committee, obviously, on both houses does, in fact, conduct its business in secret, in that they vote in secret on some legislation. All this contemplates is the offering and receiving of information that the minority has represented they believe they want to give to the members that they ought not to give in open session. The matter that we are considering, obviously, is a very important, critical matter. There are substantial, as you know, differences. You and I agree on most of those. We perhaps disagree with others. It was the Speaker's and my view, after discussing with Mr. Conyers and Mr. Reyes, that to deny that would give members the impression that somehow we did not believe they ought to have that information. Now, I don't know what the information is, as I've said. But having said that, we certainly do not contemplate any business being done. Now, the fact that a member may say something that is neither secret, I would presume things are going to be said in there that aren't secret. The gentleman from Ohio raised some excellent points. I share the concern of the gentleman from Texas and the concerns. But I also understand this is a serious matter. We believe in public, we will debate tomorrow a serious proposal as to how to serve our intelligence interests and our constitutional responsibilities. So I'm hopeful that we will not object to this, although I think the concerns raised are absolutely legitimate, very serious, worthwhile concerns, and as the gentleman from Texas observes, which is why this is done so very infrequently. I've only been a participant in the 1983 session. I thank the gentleman for yielding, but that's my take on what's going to transpire.
Would the gentleman yield? The gentleman from Texas yield?
I yield.
I'd say to my friend, I appreciate your concern about this. I'd also say that the rules provide for this kind of session. Many members of the House, more members of the majority than the minority, were here when we had a secret session before we talked about implementing legislation of the Panama Canal Zone or Cuba and other communist bloc countries' involvement in Nicaragua. I actually think the debate that we're entering into this week is at a high level of security for the country. I believe I'll bring information to the secret session that some members are aware of, but most are not. I also think that by the definition of the mutual agreement that we would divide the time, that I'm only bringing part of the discussion. I certainly can't suggest what will happen in the questions and comments and concerns that will come from the other side. So, you know, at least the 30 minutes of the hour, I also have no idea what will be said in that, but I thought that was a fair way to divide the hour that I could have at least asked for to control on my own under the rules with none of the restrictions the gentleman suggested. And the majority of the members of the House can either decide to do that or not, and I appreciate the Speaker and the leader trying to work in this important issue to create an environment where we could talk about topics that we could not otherwise talk about. I'm also sure, as my friend from California suggested, that some of the things that will be talked about very likely can and will be talked about later in the week, because they will not be, they will be related to a secret topic, but not secret in nature. You just can't discuss them as having been discussed as part of the secret session. You just discuss them as you would if we hadn't had the secret session that the rules clearly allow for. And again, were exercised, the most times these rules were exercised in the history of the Congress was not in the 1820s or the 1830s. It was in the 1970s and the 1980s, and many members of the majority were here during that time and participated in those sessions.
Well, it may be that you've eased some of my concerns, but when you talk about the 70s and the 80s and the like, it's 3 times since 1825. Let me just be sure that I'm clear, because maybe we're in agreement on this. The only purpose of your requesting this secret session is to present to the House or have others present matters that you feel you cannot present in public concerning matters that are classified. It may be necessary to discuss other interrelated matters, and you can anticipate what questions you may be asked, but the only reason for convening the House tonight in secret is because there are classified matters that you feel would jeopardize the security of our country if we discuss them in public.
I think I'm in agreement with the parameters the gentleman suggested. I'm also in agreement with I also understand that when you raise those topics, you have perhaps a fuller exchange of ideas, but certainly you can't control what the exchange of ideas will be,
of course,
in the hour that we would mutually agree to give ourselves for this topic. And I believe the topic is every bit as important as the implementing legislation for the Panama Canal Zone or other things that this has been used for in the past. And I frankly think the topic is of supreme importance to the security of the country. And
thank you.
That's why I was prepared to make the request, but also prepared not to make the request with my discussions with the majority leader and the speaker about a way that we could mutually agree how to divide the time, how to establish rules that go beyond the rule that I would have been entitled to ask for, but perhaps not as far as being able to prove that we wouldn't talk about anything in that hour that wasn't of a secret nature. And I would thank the gentleman.
Yield to the gentleman from Wisconsin.
Would the gentleman yield?
I yield.
I thank the gentleman. Let me simply say I was here for those secret sessions. And I think the great utility of having another one, given the mumbo-jumbo that I heard at the last 3, is simply to demonstrate the almost total uselessness of secret sessions.
Well, I will, at this point, withdraw my reservation, but would want noted by the reservation my concern as a former member of the judiciary about the precedent-setting nature of this, the 4th time since 1825, and would just ask that we stick to the purpose for which the gentleman has said we are gathering, and we give the most careful consideration before embarking on any such secret sessions in the future.
I appreciate the gentleman's comment.
The gentleman from Texas withdraws his objection. Any further objection?
Reserving the right to object.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the comments of my friend from Texas and his concern about us not conducting our business in secret. We share those concerns, and although this isn't unprecedented, it is an extraordinary act for this Congress to take. I think it's important that many of us, at least on this side of the aisle, believe that the necessity for this is because the Protect America Act has not been brought to the floor and the House hasn't been allowed to vote on it, and consequently we believe that it is important to have a discussion that hopefully will allow our friends, many of our friends on the other side of the aisle, to see the imperative of moving forward with the Protect America Act and allowing H.R. 3773 with the Senate amendments to be voted on this floor of the House. So I will be supporting moving into this secret session because I believe that it is a step that will allow our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to appreciate and understand the imperative of having a vote on the floor of the House of the Senate amendments and concur in those Senate amendments to H.R. 3773. And I withdraw my reservation.
The gentleman from Georgia withdraws his objection. Is there further objection? The gentleman from New York.
The least important thing I can think of, the least important, is that the American public doesn't think too well of Congress right now, and going into a secret session is not going to help that. But that's the least important thing. It almost sounds like we need a secret session prior to the secret session to tell the membership what we're allowed to do and say after the secret session. Some of us who oppose many of the things that have happened since September 11th have already drawn conclusions as to what we think is happening or not happening. I don't have privy to all the intelligence, and I don't think anyone does. And there are some folks in our government and some agencies historically that I don't trust.